Hey, welcome to the Cybersecurity Whisper. It's Super Bowl Sunday for the week of February 9th. Hope you had a great weekend, and I don't know who's going to win the game tonight, but I'm sure many of you are watching, and I'm also sure many of you are probably tired of hearing about or reading about Deepseek. We talked about it last week. Certainly continues to be a hot topic in the news. We won't cover it today, other than many states are banning it, and companies are integrating it into their systems already, and the federal government's considering banning it. Only because, well, really two reasons: the direct ties to to China, as well as just really bad security policies, and continue to show a real lapse in security controls. So concerns about that. But we're going to start off with GitHub this week, and if you use the GitHub Desktop client, there's a vulnerability that risks credential leaks via a malicious remote URL, and so. Multiple security vulnerabilities have been disclosed in GitHub Desktop, as well as other Git-related projects that, if they're successfully exploited, they could permit an attacker to gain unauthorized access to a user's Git credentials. And so Git implements a protocol called Git Credential Protocol to retrieve credentials from the credential helper. And because of improper handling of messages, many projects were vulnerable to credential leakage in various different ways. Using a maliciously crafted URL, it's possible to cause the credential request coming from Git to be misinterpreted by GitHub Desktop, such that it will send those credentials for a different host than the host that Git is currently communicating with, therefore allowing secret exfiltration. So users are advised to update to the latest version to protect against these vulnerabilities. And if immediate patching is not an option for you, then the risk associated with the flaws can be mitigated by avoiding running git clone with the --recurse submodules against untrusted repositories. It's also recommended to not use the credential helper by only cloning publicly available repositories. Now, here's an interesting one. We knew that this would happen with generative AI, and there's already folks out there reaching out, probably sending you direct messages and such about helping you publish a book. $25,000 a ghostwriter will help you, and that's certainly still a thing. But I even wonder how much of that is now AI generated, and it's actually now costing you money in terms of taxpayers in your public library and libraries. So librarians are saying that taxpayers are already paying for low quality AI generated ebooks in your public libraries, and they're forcing librarians who are already understaffed to either sort through a functionally infinite number of books to determine what is written by humans and what is generated by AI, or spend taxpayer dollars to provide patrons with information that you may not even realize is AI generated. So public libraries, they use two different companies primarily to manage their ebooks, and this is also how you check them out. It's called Hoopla and Overdrive. Now, the latter you may know from its borrowing app called Libby. Both companies have a variety of payment options for libraries, but generally libraries get access to the company's catalog of books, and they pay for customers to be able to borrow that book, with different books having different licenses and prices. However, a key difference is that with Overdrive, librarians can pick and choose which books in their catalog they want to give their customers the option of borrowing. But with Hoopla, librarians have to opt into the entire catalog and then pay for whatever their customers choose to borrow from that catalog. The only way librarians can really limit what Hoopla books their customers can borrow is by setting a limit on the price of the books. For example, a library can use Hoopla, but make it so their customers can only borrow books that cost maybe $5 per use. So, on one hand, Hoopla's gigantic catalog, which is, again, it's ebooks, audiobooks, and movies, that's really a selling point because it does give librarians access to more for a cheaper price. But on the other hand, making the librarians buy into the entire catalog means that a customer that maybe is looking for a book on how to diet for a healthier liver, they might end up with a book called Fatty Liver Diet Cookbook, 2,000 Days of Simple and Flavorful Recipes for a Revitalized Liver. Now, that's a real book. That's authored by someone called Magda Tangi, and that person has no online footprint, and their profile picture on Amazon is AI generated. And that's based on this company called Reality Defender. They said that according to their platform, the headshot is definitely 85% AI generated. And so if you look at this book, it consists mostly of recipes and includes a disclaimer that the author and publisher are not even experts in the field. And it really doesn't include any dangerous information as far as the researchers could tell, but it does appear to be AI generated based on the prose and the formatting, and it's got summaries broken up with bolded subheadings that are very common in outputs from large language models like ChatGPT. So, again, are these cookbooks written or reviewed by a dietitian or a medical professional? What about if somebody that's had gastric bypass or a cancer patient receives cooking instructions to make a meal that's actually, in violation of their medical condition? And so, if you were choosing for a library, you need to vet each one. And, again, some might be excellent, but some might be dangerous. So keep your eye out on that. Now, for those of you that are, love the acronym soup of cybersecurity and the Gartner quadrants and how they name everything, cybersecurity giants are rushing to acquire DSPM startups. DSPM stands for Data Security Posture Management. And the standalone data security posture management providers, they're being forced to either expand from cloud visibility to security controls and policy enforcement, or they're going to be overtaken by some broad security platforms. And this is really shown since the rise of DSPM in 2020 and 2021, because enterprises really need to discover, classify, and assess risk for sensitive data across cloud environments. But the initial wave of these DSPM solutions were visibility driven, not control driven, meaning they could surface security risks, but they didn't directly enforce security policies. Well, we saw in 2023 that DSPM had become one of the most rapidly consolidating markets in cybersecurity, since clients didn't want another pane of glass, another standalone security tool that lacked enforcement capabilities and needed additional manual integrations. So the answer lies in either building or buying a unified data security platform where, again, DSPM, data loss prevention, and access governance all work together. And so, look, the companies that acquired these DSPM vendors already have control. They have a control capability. But by acquiring DSPM, it really turbocharges what they can do. It gives them more visibility and insight so they can either more accurately apply those controls or do it in a more targeted way. So they're really able to say, hey, we can go deeper into cloud environments. And that was really a big push. I mean, look, we have 7 examples of startups in the DSPM space that have already been acquired. Since May of 23, you've got IBM, Rubrik, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, Tenable, Netskope, and Proofpoint. They all acquired products. And so really the only, or the largest standalone DSPM firm now is Cyera. And the New York-based firm has cashed in by notching a $3 billion valuation, raising $600 million. And they did quite the opposite. They bought a DLP company called Trail. So definitely keep your eye out on that space. It is a very fast-moving but very valuable space in terms of understanding where your sensitive data is across all your cloud environments. We've talked a lot about these fake job interview campaigns. I just want to reiterate another one that I saw this week. State-linked hackers are deploying Mac OS malware in fake job interview campaigns. Interesting, they're focusing on Macs. A lot of consumers, end users are using Macs. These researchers discovered new variants of a Mac OS malware family that state-sponsored North Korean threat actors have used in threat campaigns involving fake job interviews. And so SentinelOne, they revealed in a post, they're calling it Flexible Ferret. Well, it's a new type of Mac OS malware not currently detected by Apple's security software. It's part of an active threat campaign, Dub. It's talking about these interviews in which threat actors use job interviews to trick targeted individuals into downloading the malware. Contagious interview is what they're calling it. And targets are typically asked to communicate with an interviewer through a link that throws an error message, and then it requests them install or update some piece of software such as vCam or camera access for virtual meetings. If you're doing an interview and they're really targeting like developers as well for these, like GitHub developers and others, if they're asking you to do something besides, come on, Zoom or Teams or maybe, even the Google Meet platform, I would be leery to just move on to a different company. You should really be using a standardized, even, the Cisco WebEx software, they might be asking you. But if they ask you to install a special program, it's probably a scam and you need to move on. For those of you that use Grubhub, they confirmed a data breach this week affecting both customers and drivers. They said, look, hackers accessed the personal details of customers and drivers after breaching its internal systems. And if you're not familiar, Grubhub, certainly a popular food ordering delivery platform with more than 375,000 merchants and 200,000 delivery providers in more than 4,000 U.S. cities, obviously certainly really took off during COVID. And in fact, New York-based Wonder Group acquired Grubhub last fall, a deal valued at $650 million. Well, on Monday, the Illinois-based company disclosed a data breach impacting the personal data of an undisclosed number of customers, merchants, and drivers. They won't tell you how many, but they said it detected unusual activity in its network. They traced it to a third-party service provider, They immediately launched an investigation, identified the unauthorized access to an account associated with that provider, immediately terminated that account, and removed the service provider from our system. So they fired them, gotten rid of them. And they said the intrusion allowed the unnamed hackers to access the personal details of customers, merchants, and drivers who interacted with its customer care service. So again, this was part of their customer care platform, maybe like a ticketing system. The breach also affected users of Grubhub's campus dining service, which allows university students to use their meal credits on the food delivery app. So again, the personal details, they said, names, email addresses, phone numbers, partial payment card information, the last four of your card for a subset of campus diners. And the hacker also accessed hashed passwords for certain legacy systems. But it said the bank account details and social security numbers were not affected by the breach. I don't know why Grubhub is asking for socials. No, I'm not quite understanding that. Maybe for the drivers because they're employees. As well as not disclosing how many individuals have been affected by the breach. Grubhub has not confirmed even the date of when the breach occurred. So hopefully they'll be a little more transparent and we'll be able to determine a little more in the coming weeks. Well, I know all of you are busy watching the Super Bowl. I wanted to make it a little shorter this week. Be sure and like, subscribe, and ask us any questions in the comments. We'd love to chat with you. Have a great week.